But one thing I've noticed is the whole thing of lies. You know, truth is sparing. They'll tell you we have done this until you physically see it on the ground yourself. You'll find out 99 citizens back in 2006, 07, 08, that kind of era, it's not the truth. You know, they've done nothing.
Truth in what way? Do you mean like a business venture, or do you mean like?
Yeah, business. So they'll say to you, "Oh, we've all this set up. We've a line set up. We're reducing products. We have them here ready for you. Yeah, come over here," thinking that you wouldn't go over and check it, because you know it takes nearly 2 days to get down to the place, because Russia's massive. But then when you go over and check it, nothing done. So yeah, like.
Was this part of the building stuff? Because I remember hearing lads getting like involved in projects, not just necessarily Russia, but like in Eastern Europe, where they get involved in some building thing in Bulgaria or Estonia, and the thing wouldn't be done. Is that kind of the thing you're talking about, or?
No. This is corporate.
Okay.
Actual jobs. Yeah. It's. Yeah, I know. It's. Yeah. So when I hear like what you said there, kind of earlier on, it's great. In one way, you know, what was the agenda? All of a sudden, he came over last February, and you know, everything was dropped, all this kind of stuff. The way I am is, I have my own thoughts, I have my own beliefs, and the way I've answered this in my own head is when you don't agree with me, I might have followed you for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. I'll just drop you. That's the way I am, and you know, it goes around the family, goes around my boys, goes around my kids. Certain stuff I will not fucking budge on it. Like going into this, you know, this Christmas next year, or this whole other agenda, wherever that. I've already set my lines in the sand. You know, that kind of stuff. And some of it's around the traditional Catholic upbringing and all that, and some of it isn't. Some of it I don't agree with. And I just, you know, that, and I'd be a very tolerant person. I do think, like, I am going out Saturday to, you know, we're going to a month's mass for a gay friend of ours who passed away very young, and it's going to be, you know, mainly gays, lesbians, that kind of stuff, and that community. But we can have an open conversation. We know each other for a long time, and we already did in relation to the concerns that are coming from their community, because they're very scared. I always spoke to them.
They are like I know. There's a guy I know. Like I'm very kind of good friends with him. Like, he's you know, he's gay himself, but like he's, you know, and like he's kind of said it to me that like he's freaking the fuck out with this whole kind of drag queen story time tranny stuff, because his attitude is like, I just want to be left alone. But this stuff is turning people against. This stuff is turning people against me, and you know, I don't want that. Like, there is a subsection of the gay community who do think like that, and yeah.
Well, they need to get out and make some noise. Like, these people who don't agree with it, it's more important that they get out and make some noise than we fucking do. Because their acquiescence to it kind of shows that, oh, well, all of the gay community are involved in supporting the fucking trannies. And, you know, when the boo comes, then whoever that open their mouth kind of gets what they fucking deserve. Whether they say it under their breath or if they believe it at all, it doesn't make any difference. They're the most important people that should come out now and fucking say it. Because it is going to turn, and they're going to get a kicking.
Yeah, I mean,
they are actually.
That's not really talked about. Like, the gay community, a big chunk of them, like, really, really do hate the trans stuff.
Christian Morris, he's actually really outspoken about it, and I'm not a big fan, like, but you know what? I really respect what he's saying, and he is livid about what's going on.
No wonder, like, mind controlling fucking kids. What are we doing? Like, in civilized society, we're leaving our young children be fucking mind controlled by God knows what, really, like, you know? And it's the people who are involved in that community who are acquiescing and remaining silent. They're the main fucking problem. If they all got together now and came out with an official statement to say, we don't want none of this fucking mind control shit, then it would be over in 2 seconds.
Yeah, like I'd be like, when Saturday comes, I will be chatting and I'll be trying to bring in the lads in the group. Kind of said, yeah, I would be scared of IUG because, and I'm not trying to create fear here, Anton, guys, is I can see they're coming after E now, and we've already gone through it, you know, because they all know I'm on jab for that, like, you know. But I will be saying I'll stand with you as long as you have nothing to do with kids. That's my line, you know, and that's, you know, and there won't be any kind of from boss in that or any kind of stuff. But yeah, no, the general feeling I got, Ross' general feeling was very obvious. 2-3 weeks ago, when we were at, and this was at a removal, was, you know, I'm scared now here in Ireland. I always felt safe here. I don't anymore. This kind of stuff, and it wasn't the place they're talking about. I didn't. I just said, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever. You know, I don't think that, you know, I didn't go into any kind of stuff. It wasn't the place to do it, you know. But I do know on come the weekend, there will be the place to kind of just talk to them and get a few little points across, not go into depth and stuff. Just talk about, you know, how the media. I wouldn't be trusting everything that say. That's not the opinion I have here of your community. You know,
the way I see it is, they're all happy with their special status, with the Pride Week and the Pride Month and the Pride Year and the Pride fucking everything. But not one of them comes out and says there's a serious issue going on with fucking trying to brainwash young kids into fucking sterilising themselves. Do you know what I mean? Like, who are these people? Like,
yeah, but we do know who these people are. They're NGOs. Yeah, and
no, I mean, I'm silent people of the gay community that aren't doing anything about it. They enjoy the pride fucking status. Everybody speaking big about them and what a great achievement it is to come out and all this fucking shit. And then at the same time, they have this affiliated group that's clearly out to fucking brainwash children, and they're not saying nothing about it. The tide will turn 100%. I know it. And they better speak out now before they all get cast with the same stick.
Yeah, and no, I'm with you there. It's as obvious as hell. You can see it there. And even there, you know, I was at a garden party there just 2 weeks ago, and they were speaking about, you know, this is the way it's going to be, the future and all that kind of stuff. You know, we're going to bring into the schools and all this kind of stuff. A few civil servants in around, and this is what they were promoting. And I just went, I said, look, guys, that'll turn just like that. They said, what do you mean? It'll just turn like that. All you have to say is, one of these from this community has fucked a child, or the child has got monkeypox. And you put 2 and 2 there, and you get 5. Because we know that's all.
But does it even have to be that drastic? I mean, openly, they're fucking pumping the brainwashing in school now to kids as young as fucking 7. You know what I mean? Realistically, this horrible kind of thing doesn't even have to happen to a child. They're doing enough now at the moment for people to get really fucking mad.
Yeah, but I again, what I've seen is it goes back to the action. You know, it'll take you know, it's so tolerant until it affects them. You know, and this country is quite rich. You know, most people around,
I wouldn't call it.
They think they're rich. They think they're rich.
It's fake rich.
They think they're rich. You know, but they're all mortgaged and all this kind of stuff. So, and another thing as well that as I've noticed in the last 2-3 weeks as well is just around me is you know, job insecurity now is coming into it. You know, certain guys are over. You know, head guy is over. He's already told us there's going to be jobs being cut. I have a friend. He's a manager there in the big thing, and he had to cut 12 of his team. But 12 of his team were cut from Ireland, but they were moved to the UK.
Yeah, so even some of the
kind of
multinationals are factoring this into their kind of like Q3 and Q4 budgets. They're just not going to be hiring people as much in Q4 this year. Yeah, no, that's definitely happening right now. That, even the companies that don't want to accept that what's happening is happening, they're putting a budget hire freeze for the last quarter of this year. So like, if you want to get a job, or if you want to get into a new job, and that, like, the next month or so is when you want to do it.
In a guy on Twitter, and he's a tradesman, and he was saying a lot of the smaller companies are struggling to get work now, even in the building industry.
Yeah, increasing costs, like inflation in terms of like the building industry has just been a fucking nightmare.
There is the lumber has come down. I was talking to a tradesman there the weekend. The lumber has come down. Quotes. He just said, I just pricing a job a year and a half ago, just as we're coming out of lockdown. He told me since, I look, he's just a friend. He just keeps me updated. He said, it's getting now close to the point where, costs have come down, the price of stuff has come down, and it makes sense. It makes sense because when you look at the futures market with stuff, oil is coming down, lumber has come down. Like, oil now is at 90 something bucks. And I think the Biden kind of Democrat side stuff, they need that to come down further. If they go into the midterms now, November, and that's at say 70, if we roll back 2 months ago, they were talking about $300 oil. And now, it's back down again. Propaganda, remember? Propaganda. Everyone was taking that side. It was going to Goldman Sachs. Everyone, Bank of America, were all saying that. So that is feeding in there as well. And then, as you were saying there as well, Gail, the US side of things, it is softening there now. Relation to prices, stock is increasing, inventory as well. So, I do think with Ireland, I think there's enough there to get us through the Christmas. In relation to, they've made enough money all year now. Any builder that's out there, they've made their money in the first 4 months. Any builder worth his salt for the year. Because the guy, he's in big demand. He's still in demand. And he knows my thinking on stuff and all that kind of stuff. So he knows I'll be interested in getting it done when he's quiet. And when it's cheap for material and all that kind of stuff. Because I do be telling him about the prices when they go up for lumber and all that kind of stuff. Because he usually sees it about maybe a month later, in relation to, because of the lead time, supply chains and all that kind of nonsense. But yeah, no, I do think we just kind of hump along in Ireland till November, December, and but then the new year, yeah, a lot is, for me, is around that midterms. If the Republicans get a majority, if the Democrats get a majority, we're fucked. You can fucking, I'll be going out to Aldi little, I'll be buying enough food for fucking, I'll be beg, borrowing, stealing for fucking 3 years of food if they get in. If the Republicans get in, then Democrats have a bigger problem. Then they have to convince the Republicans to go to war come fucking Q1, January, February, March. In relation to stuff, and they could be bought, the Republicans. So I don't trust politics over there. But it's beginning to fall, as you said there. The whole jab stuff, that's gone. You're not going to get people buying into that. It's fuck you. You've third time. You're not going to get them this Christmas, no matter what you say to them. And the monkeypox thing, that's not flying as well. Like, people joke about it, as you said. That's what I'm finding as well. People just laughing at, like, So yeah, there's a lot of positives out there. There's definitely a lot of positives, but it's that thing that we're not talking about that they could bring out. Whatever it is, and yeah.
I think the one of the most interesting things what will happen is the split between kind of the US and Europe in terms of this kind of neocon bullshit that's going on in the US, and stuff like Germany's whole manufacturing industry collapsing or kind of contracting. Even countries like Switzerland are saying they don't have enough gas to get through the winter. So, you know, if there's a kind of a phase whereby like they kind of get to their senses and they kind of start like unraveling or trying to start correcting the whole thing. You know, I mean, like even recently, like Nord Stream 1 got shut down for 3 days, or I think might even be shut down right now, between Russia and Germany. Like, I mean, unless they want a Sri Lanka happening in those countries, you know, that might be enough to turn that kind of political sentiment in that direction. But, and in turn, because one of the problems Ireland has is, you know, we don't have a central bank. You know, like our central bank is Frankfurt. You know, so what affects Germany will affect us. And if there's a significant inflationary effect in Germany, that will affect us in terms of like the fact that like we still have there's an ECB meeting in about 2 or 3 weeks' time, as far as I remember correctly, to raise interest rates again. And you know, the effect of that's going to hit people on any kind of floating mortgage or standard variable rate mortgage or anything like that, or any kind of loans that have been taken out. That's going to factor in as well. So that's another factor that could, or probably will actually, impact us by late September sometime.
That was you brought up the economy there, and you've been talking about there in the last couple of times that you were on, Gail. And I was actually tuned in to Martin Armstrong there a few weeks back. He actually made it on to the USA Watchdog. I don't know if you follow Greg Hunter or not. Like I do follow him religiously, and he was talking about like what was going to happen with economies basically, and because like basically he has a piece of software that he designed back maybe 30-40 years ago, and it tracks, he watches capital flows basically, and he's able to make really pretty accurate predictions on how capital is going to flow out of countries, you know, and so he's able to predict basically the collapse of nations basically. So
and now it's going to Russia, is it?
No, yeah, there's that as well too. But what I want to talk about basically
is the dollar at the moment. It's going to, but keep on going.
Yeah, the dollar, right? The dollar. Everybody's going to be moving into their dollar now. He put out a prediction there about 2 months ago, and he was saying August, September is when it's going to start, and that what we need to be looking for is when the dollar starts to rise, and that's happening right now at this moment in time. Like we have the dollar, the euro, they're at parity almost. Now, yes. the way he was describing it is this, right? Basically, everybody, all the countries of the world, they've been investing in American dollars. So all the debt has been in American dollar. Now, and he was making particular reference to the pension funds and what we might call the social contract. And there's a few people talking about this social contract and how the social contract is broken, right? So, and what he was pointing to was that for the last 10 years, since 2014, that Europe has been at negative interest rates. Now, what he was pointing out was that, like, if a pension fund is to be profitable or even to break even, this is what he said, to break even, they need to be sort of like earning at 7 to 8%. So, and because these pension funds have been at negative interest rates, because we've been at negative interest rates, these pension funds are dry, they're gone, people can forget about them. So and he was saying like this disaster, this financial collapse is going to start in August, September. And I'm looking at the charts. I checked the charts earlier on today, the euro dollar exchange rate, and the euro is like at 99.096 or something like that. So, and it's dropping steadily. It's like it's at the slowest point. I checked out the whole chart. It's at the slowest point in the whole history of the existence of the euro. So, I'm kind of thinking that Martin Armstrong might be correct, and that like the euro is about on the verge of total collapse. The social contract is fucked. No wonder they want to get rid of all these old people. So let's fucking get all these people who will be entitled to pension. Let's get them out of the fucking scene. Let's fucking. I'm a conspiracy theorist, I've always been like, but I'm not, but let's get rid of all these fucking old people and let's reduce the burden on the fucking state. Because this ship is going down.
Yeah,
that's
so
what I was afraid of. Yeah, 100%.
So just on that point there, like, I agree with you. Like, so I did a stream about this, I think about 2 months ago, but I was kind of saying the fact that like the dollar is going to be the last currency to collapse in a sense, or it's one that's going to be still quite stable in a way, because you have all these contracts with all these different banks, and they're all denominated in dollars. So if you're Japan or whatever, not only do you have to pay off your own bills, and because all these like loans and between different banks are denominated in dollars, you have to you have to buy more dollars to pay those contracts off. So that's why all these different currencies are going to fall between the dollar, and that's why the dollar is gaining more purchasing power over the euro, and the euro is collapsing in comparison to the dollar before that. So I mean that part of it isn't a surprise to me, to be honest at all. But I'm very interested in what you were saying about the pension funds. So this guy, he says like August to September. Is there a particular switch point between like, is it a case of like that a certain rate changes, or like what's the August September cutoff? Because it's a very specific one. I mean, for example, like I'm not doubting it, because I can just go back to an example. Like, a lot of people like that made money off the subprime mortgage market in America. They correctly predicted the fact that like, the subprime mortgages would swap from 2% for the first 2 years to about 6%. And that's when the mortgages would start to fail. So is it like, is there a similar logic like that in the pension market, or is there something else kind of going on?
No, he didn't. He doesn't give specifics, because the computer software that he uses is not that specific. Like, but he is able to sort of like say that like whatever is going to start happening, we will start to see the early signs in August, September that the ship is going down. And
sorry for interrupting you there.
You're okay. You're okay.
Yeah. It's just on that. I followed Armstrong for about 10 years now, and as you said there, he's brilliant. But I will take a note. Just put a note in there for someone that's just coming in. I don't know exactly how long you're following him. He's very, very good. What he does, he predicts changes, potential changes in relation to time series, in relation to months. Yeah, no. I'm not. Well, what I'm saying to you is what I'm saying to everyone is, what he's saying is end of August, stroke September. There's a potential there that we have some kind of conflict. We have some kind of change in direction. The peak low was in June, and then we're coming now here. Usually the peak high is in towards the end of August, stroked into September. He does this through his arrays. So they have identified, and the piece of software they're talking about is Socrates. So what Socrates, now there's a lot of flaws with Socrates, because what he does is he gives daily timing signals, he gives weekly timing signals, he gives monthly timing signals in relation to indices, in relation to stocks, in relation to buy. If you go on them, you'll lose money. you will lose money in relation to it, but his big picture stuff in relation to changes in the dynamics. What he's saying at the moment is absolutely there's a possibility that we could start seeing the start of the decline here come August, September. And what he was kind of saying is people come back from holidays, they've been with the family, and they start selling all the stocks that they have, high performance stuff, to pay for the family holiday, to pay for the summer. This is the Wall Street type of guys and all this kind of stuff. But he does put a caution in there. When I get his detailed reports now, they're $150 per month. And in his detailed subscription, so you can get a free one. He just goes along, Rev and he gives you some ideas, Rev 15. But with the detailed one, what he does is he'll say to you, he won't put this into the €15 or the €50 subscription. He'll say to you, there's potential that this is wrong. But this is a key turning point. So you could be someone that goes along and says, I'll play the key turning points. So for someone that trades options, so bet on the market whether to go up and down, it's unreal. You could say, okay, I'll buy calls that the market will go up. I'll buy puts, market will go down. And either way, because he has identified this as a key turn point, you'll make money. Now, in relation to you're going to reach all that, no. You're talking about percentages here. That the market will tear off in one direction or another, but you've both sides covered. And you always put these bets on then around these key turning points. Good man. Fair play to you. Exactly. So, like in relation to, absolutely, key turning point. Let's see what happens in relation to it. And all signs for me are there. That the markets will start coming down, put pressure, and then the Fed are meant to be pivoting now in September, but they've since rolled back on that. So they're going to go after the mortgage owner there and increase by another 3/4 points, and then signal to the market that we are going to pivot in February, March next year, i.e. start reducing rates. That's what they mean by pivot, i.e. give a signal there. We'll give it now here in September. We're going to reduce rates. And that's why you see the markets now coming down. They don't like it. They're not doing any money printing at the moment here in relation to that. But if it rolled in on about maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks' time, and I'm thinking there, November elections, midterms, I'm thinking in around September, September.
Student debt forgiveness actually for those elections. I don't know if anything's been said about that, but if I was thinking if I wanted to get elected, the student debt stuff would be an obvious place to start.
They've mentioned that already. They said about 1.5.
Yeah, he mentioned a great point there, Armstrong. He what he mentioned there was all these kind of immigrants are coming in. Someone could push an executive order in front of him, and Biden just signs it off to say they're granted citizenship. So this meant they have all these extra citizens that weren't citizens, and they can vote in terms of the elections. And sure, if they're after getting citizenship, if you've ever dealt or talked to people from Latin America or anything like that, the dream is always to kind of get into the US and this kind of stuff. They'll vote Democrat. So he makes a kind of thing there in relation to that, and then the debt forgiveness in relation to students there as well. So it's definitely but time and time stuff. I'm thinking into September, October, we could see maybe an increase in the prices of oil, that kind of stuff. It's market kind of goes down with time, but when the attention span of the average person, so maybe less than 3 months, they start saying, looking at the pension funds, it's all down. Nick's meant to go along then and, to start making things better. The pension funds start rising and start manipulating the markets there in relation to that, come into the midterms, and, it gives them a little bit of a boost there from a democratic point of view and all that. It's in the Democrats'
but FJ
to start. Yeah, sorry,
FJ, he was very specific though about when the dollar starts to rise, and what he was.
That's a Michael Burry level prediction there. Like if it's within those 1 or 2 months, like that's why I was asking before. Like, is it a contract thing, or which wouldn't make sense for pensions?
It's got to do with how like everybody around the world has invested in American debt, right? So like everybody has invested in American debt, and I think there was he mentioned the fact that China was warned, Beijing was warned not to invest in American debt, but they went ahead with it anyway. So China is in danger here as well too. So when the dollar starts to rise, the cost of servicing the debt starts to fucking go astronomical, and that's what he's saying, is that like this is the pivot point.
And he's 100% right.
If I got this right, what he's saying is basically what like we've talked about before. Like I've said before that you've got all these dollar-denominated debt contracts. Countries have to raise their currency to start paying those. That gives an artificial kind of rise to the dollar. Other countries and other currencies start to deteriorate and collapse in terms of servicing that debt. And then 100%. You end up in a point whereby the dollar starts deflating because other countries can't start paying those debts back. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, later on. At the moment where we are, you've hit the nail in the head. The demand for dollars is so high because they have to service the debt. So the debt is denominated in the dollars. In the countries, say for example, like Sri Lanka, they would have been advised not to get dollar debt. China advised not to get dollar debt, i.e. emerging markets. So where you start seeing the contagion or contagion effect for other markets is it's like the pigs come back to 08, is the amount of money that it requires to service that debt. It gets more and more in terms of the local denominated currency. And now the Federal Reserve, what are they doing? They're increasing the rates. So that amount of debt is getting more and more and more. And also what's happening in the countries that's trying to service this debt, they're getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So yeah, that's it, 100%. But I do think there's a double top in the DXY. I do think that we've kind of reached that point now where, once they signal, if they come September and they go along and they say, the market is a forward-looking mechanism of a minimum 6 months out. So once they signal in, that's why the reason why the markets went down there in the last week since last Thursday, Friday, is because they said that they said that they weren't going to pivot in September, and now we'll have to see, because the markets were expecting them to pivot, so now they're selling off the stock, and there's the bond. The stock market, never mind that. It's the bond market that we have to look at, i.e., emerging market bonds, 10-year bonds, the pigs, the spread between
even the pigs, like, these 10-year bond yield rates are about 5% right now. Well, 4.5 or 4.6. Those numbers get up to about 7% in the European Union. That's when things are deteriorating.
On the TNX, i.e. the 10-year for the US, it's 3.1, I think there, or 3.05, whatever that, of there tonight. In ratio. But now the obvious the retail rate then, after that then, i.e. the bond rate for the 10-year, and then that's the base rate. Everything else then is depending on where you are in the food chain, is added onto that. So the mortgage then, it might be 2% onto that, depending on the fixed rate, variable rate, wherever that, like, or 1%, or wherever you're on, it'll be based off that. But what's happening there at the same time is, I expect you will start seeing it in the next couple of days, is, so say for example that 10 years at 3.0, just say for example, keep it simple. If the Fed starts stepping in, if the European Central Bank starts stepping in and starts buying up these bonds, that'll drive down the rate, i.e. drive down the yield, i.e. drive down from 3 to 2.9 to 2.8, 2.7. Now, a big signal there is when these markets start getting, we know we're kind of, in trouble, i.e. locally, i.e. trouble in the US, i.e. bank machines potentially not working, this kind of stuff, is if we see this 10-year constantly rising, and the Fed, doesn't matter who you listen to, or any of that kind of stuff, they're in control of that. So when they decide they want to pull the plug on that, they'll pull the plug on it. I won't know, and no one will know. Doesn't matter much research you've done or and that kind of stuff, and it'll just happen when they decide they want it to happen. So,
well, I mean, in terms of pulling the plug, I mean, I think what they're trying to do is they can't do a Paul Volcker because that will collapse the economy. I mean, the US economy has about 30 trillion in terms of debt. And, like I think I worked through the numbers before. If you brought up interest rates to about 15%, your interest rate payments would equal the entire GDP output of the US economy. So I think what they're trying to do, again, I could be wrong here, but I think what the Fed is trying to do is they're trying to incrementally raise interest rates so that all the bad kind of toxic asset bullshit starts failing first. And once that starts failing, those asset prices collapse. And once those asset prices collapse, banks and various other institutions can buy those up, prop up their balance sheets of what's ever left, and then the next cycle can continue. And they can start gradually winding down. I mean, and actually, this is part of what the Great Reset actually is. Like it's a part of adjusting this circle down and down and down. But the problem is, of course, if you've got like 10+% inflation and your interest rates are rising by like, whatever it is, like 75 basis points or whatever, it's hardly going to put a fucking dent in that.
That's an interesting point that you brought up there about the recession and about like weeding out these non-functional sort of like financial entities. I was listening to a very, very interesting discussion between Gonzalo Lira and Alexander Mercouris there. It's a couple of months ago, and they were talking about this particular topic, like. And they sort of like referenced how the reason we're in the problems that we're in today is that is because of the fact that 30 years ago, a decision was made that we would never suffer another recession. And the point that they were trying to sort of like hint at was that like a recession is an essential part of an economy. If you don't have a recession, that like you can't weed out all these sort of like sort of like useless parts of the economy, and instead what they've been doing is they've been bailing out these sort of like companies which would normally have become insolvent and sort of like been sort of like got rid of. Like, I'll pause there. Any thoughts?
Great memory. Fair play to you.
Yeah, I mean,
Is it fair play to you?
Yeah, I mean, like it makes sense in the way that like, if you're a business and you're working in a modern economy and you have a horrible business idea, you take out a loan, and there's a recession and certain people default on their loans or have to pay them off, and that's kind of it, but it kind of happens at a small scale, then your economy and your system can kind of recover from that. I mean, even that's an example of what happened in Russia earlier this year. Russia had their interest rates at about 21% to kind of combat the whole kind of like sanction stuff. And they held up pretty okay because their debt to GDP ratio, or the amount of debt in the economy, is actually very, very low. I mean, I thought it was. I mean, I did a stream on this. I thought it was about 50%, but it's actually about like 20%. Whereas the U.S. economy and the Western economies can't do that because they're so indebted. The Western economies would do that, they collapse completely. So it's a case of like, yeah, I mean, it's a case like you were saying there. You know, you just, I don't know what kind of analogy you'd use. I suppose it might be something like, I don't know, like, yeah, I can't think of anything right now, but I know exactly your point. Like, you know, the kind of like the small shocks are better for you rather than one giant shock, which kind of happens in terms of private debt, basically.
Yeah. That's the way I read the conversation between Lyra and McClures as well too. It was very fascinating because I'd never actually considered it before. It was just like, wow, you nailed it, boys.
That's the thing. Like, I mean, like you can use interest rates in a mad way if you don't have that much debt. But because we've got so much debt and the US have got so much debt, they can't do that.
What's our debt at the moment, and what's the? I've kind of dropped that in the last couple of weeks, given an eye on that, or months. So where are we at now in relation to that as a percentage of GDP? I know
it's about 250 billion in debt, and our GDP.
I have my hand right over my head right now. It's kind of like about 2 foot over my head. Would that be about right? Sorry, bit of fun.
Nice one. I'm just thinking about all these different stimulus packages, and now we're talking about another 500 for, you know, like for this and for that. And, you know, at some point, you know, you have to say to yourself, I know, well, actually, we have a surplus there during was it last week they announced a surplus. So yeah, just maybe pay back the debt, lads. You know, reduce that. You know, is that not an idea? You know, that we don't have to fucking. You know, maybe not. Maybe what the fuck do I know? Like, you know, I know if I got a lot of money, you know, I'd be paying back a loan or two. You know what I mean?
That's actually one of the points Armstrong made on that interview with Greg Hunter, and that like he started talking about like how Europe back in the day it started borrowing to pay all it's fine and what he said was he said they never had any intention of paying it back, and do you know what, he's probably right, you know.
Oh, he is. Right. If he can, the €15 subscription, he's definitely, I just said to anyone here, just I know it's €15 whatever that. I started off in that. I don't think it was 15 at the time. It was going back. Jesus, but it's definitely worth it. The stuff that comes out there, like I caught up with his stuff there today, and that's where I got the whole Wall Street. The banks are starting to lend in Moscow. He's definitely worth a push. In relation to predictive stuff, in relation to how this is going to happen, that as with anyone that you follow, you know, you take it in, you build up your own opinion, and it's a data point, you know, and you try and figure out that, and that's the way of advice I give to people, and that's from 20 years of, you know, kind of trade on a personal basis in the markets. I've seen a lot of shenanigans through the years, and I've seen all the kind of marketing plays and this kind of stuff in relation stuff. But Armstrong, yes, absolutely, he's a good guy, but I do know the flaws. I've seen the flaws in his system there, and Socrates. Like when you've looked at the Socrates things, like it's meant to be a software model, but there's actually spelling mistakes in it. Yeah, when you work in the software industry, that doesn't happen. So I just there's one or two things I just know the flaws and that kind of stuff. But in relation to the €15 subscription, you get access to his private blogs. He'll give you good data points there, and yeah, he's good now. He's freaking brilliant. I love him now. To be honest, I'd be a big fan of him in relation to that. But I do know I've seen over the years different predictions he's made that haven't come true. You know, they haven't come true. Like even there, if you get access to the 15-year private blog, you could throw in into the search there. You know, Jesus, what was something there I came across. Even about the Ukraine war and all this kind of stuff. He's been kind of predicting this since about 2012. 2013 in relation to stuff. So he has a very long window in relation to stuff. And even now, he's kind of saying he's very kind of downbeat. That should be 2032 before, we start seeing the light and we start moving into this new, phase of humanity in that. He's not a friend of Klaus Schwab. He's against him in relation to stuff. He has a solution there that we should be following. But another thing there that Gail, you said earlier on, and I kind of forgot about there for a while, was this whole sovereign Europe, a sovereign state that, like the US, a European sovereignty or such. Have you any other thoughts on that actually? When you said it earlier on.
Yeah, well, I guess I just meant that, like, you can have all the kind of policies you want in the world, but if you're Germany and you're running out of gas and you're scared of people, rioting in the streets, are you going to listen to the United States anymore? Because it just kind of seems on my end, or just some kind of talking to people, that the whole kind of thing against Ukraine is more of a kind of a top level European Union thing and a United States thing, rather than kind of like an average European thing. I mean, that's maybe a bit harder to kind of, or that's kind of harder to see in Ireland, because we haven't, in some ways we haven't been affected by this as much so far. But when those kind of self-interests kind of come into mind or focus, or whatever phrase you want to use, that's when things start to kind of break down a bit. So, I mean, what good is the US as your friend when you don't have any gas?
I think, and you know what, and we're probably we're pivoting here a bit, like, and we're moving into America, and America looks to be in a state of disarray, just looking from the outside. And I follow a lot of American channels, and it looks like it's breaking apart. And there's a part of me thinks that there may be some sort of like fight back internally, but it's very, very hard to tell. There's too much fog. It's like, how can America just dissolve like this? It's like the states are breaking apart. Devolution, the term devolution springs to mind. I mean, I was watching a little soundbite there from DeSantis earlier on today, and he's talking about like the likes of the Davos crowd and the WEF, and that's not going to be happening in Florida. Like, America looks like it's breaking apart, and it's been divided. I don't know how everybody else views this, and I'm curious to hear everybody's thoughts on it. Like,
I think Armstrong touched on that as well. He definitely said that there's a division there between left and right, and he was saying there's, at this stage now, there's probably no resolution because because they went over the mark with the Trump raid there in relation to that. And he did say the Socrates model kind of predicted that for next year, that the civil war will be a civil war in relation to that now. And that's not just something he's predicted there in the last couple of months. fairness to the guy, he is come back. I remember coming up with this maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. In some of his posts, and it's very easy to check that on the private blogs in relation to things. So yeah, definitely. But again, he said it as well. Around the November side of things, just to see what the story is there. There's a lot of different things that can happen there in relation to midterms, in relation to elections and voting and all this kind of stuff. But the good thing I've kind of got from not from listening to him now, but kind of just picking up on other news channels is the whole narrative. And the most important thing is I would have picked this up on other news channels maybe a couple of months ago, that the narrative was falling apart in relation to things. And but now I'm seeing it, around me. I'm seeing it locally. I'm seeing it that people are making the mistakes, and then realizing after that the mistakes, that making the wrong decision in relation to stuff. So definitely, I just have this feeling that the narrative is falling apart there in relation, and getting more and more desperate. It kind of it was kind of felt like that last November, December, where there was all this stuff about mandatory jabs and all this kind of stuff. Like they're going to go into a midterms, and there's no way Democrats will want a war in with Ukraine, and all the money is going over there, and that just seems like a money laundering scheme there to kind of filter money through there. So, and then you have this whole woke agenda. It just seems like they're really going full tilt for this now. But it's cracking everywhere. If you think about this really simple, like a child, like maybe 11, 12-year-old child that asks simple questions, very simple questions. Their goal is they're going to have one word government. That's what Klaus Schwab wants. One controlling group at the very top. They're going to dictate everyone what's going to happen. How the fuck is that going to happen? All the different countries and all the different cultures, all the different beliefs everywhere. You can't. Like common sense will tell you. You can't.
In a sense, though, Putin has come out and said there's going to be no more of this unipolar shit, right? And he's been clear about it. Now. I don't know. I have not come to. I love Russian people. I actually like Putin, but I still don't know whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. And I'm sitting back and I'm just watching this play out. But he's saying clearly and distinctly, there's going to be no globalism. There's going to be no unipolar world anymore. We're going to multipolar, right? And I have to take him at his word, because he's always, as far as I can tell from as long as I've been watching him, he's always honest, he's always straight, and he doesn't bullshit. Like when he says something, he means it. So, and I know there's a lot of I know he used to be on the WEF website and all, but if we're to believe what's happened over the last couple of years, it would seem he's out of favor. And is that a game or not? I don't know. I don't know personally. It could be part of the fucking game. It may be for real. I don't know. But at the same time, though, I have to take him at his word.
One thing I'll say about the WEF stuff though is, if you're part of the WEF or part of any of these organizations, it's the same thing in a sense as running a company or managing people. You have your plans, you want to implement them, but the problem is if anyone's run a business or if anyone's managed a team or managed a company, things go wrong all the time. people will get sick, you'll get crappy employees, you'll get people who quit the job, or even in the other direction, things will work way better than you thought you would. So, you know, like in that way, like I do think that like a lot of what's going on is, you know, is a plan, but plans go wrong. Like again, if you've managed employees or managed people, things go wrong all the fucking time. And they have to kind of, and if you're running a country or company, and you know, you might have had your vaccine jab rollout plan, and then suddenly 20% of the population in all these countries just say no, you have to backtrack it. You've got no choice. So that's just something that needs to be kind of factored in as well. And that's sort of going into your Putin point. That sort of isn't. But at the end of the day, like, you know, even if you're very powerful and even if you've got like all the plans in the world, they don't necessarily work out in the way you think. And you can see that, like, if you've run a company or run a business or manage a team of like 5 people, things never work out the way you think they do, in a good way or even a bad way. So that's just something kind of I don't think people maybe as much should kind of take on or consider, but it's an important point, I think.
One 100%, Conor. You know, you've nailed it there, and that's the way it is for sure.
Also, the current the exchange rate.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. It's actually fascinating. Like, and I don't know whether it's a good thing or, but I get the sense that it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing as well too. If I question myself, like deep down, because like what drives capitalism is competition. You know, so like what's the point? How, like if you have one sort of like superpower dictating to the world, like how it's all going to be. Like, why does one power get to dictate just because they've got a
That's fine. That's fine to some degree, but like I'm just kind of thinking in terms of like, you know, if you have this kind of, I don't know, Duganist Eurasian bullshit, I don't want that in Ireland. I'm thinking about this from an Irish perspective. You know, I'm not saying that the West are all brilliant and, you know, Russia is evil. I'm not saying that at all. I'm thinking about this from a purely Irish perspective, because what will happen is the countries within the vicinity of the big countries, you know, your China or your Russia or your United States, those are the ones that are going to have the big impact in your kind of multipolar system. And that's just kind of something that needs to be kind of factored in, because I mean, Ireland right now is essentially in some ways like a vassal state of the United States, you know, but you know, a Eurasian system is not, I don't know if that's an improvement by any stretch, you know. Like I've been reading some of the Dugan stuff recently, and it's not good, basically. What like in terms of a Eurasian system or compared to the US system? Well, I mean, like the like, I mean, Russia is like, it's not it's not exactly the it's in certain ways, like, it's not the country it's kind of made out to be, and it's not gonna I'm just purely interested in like what benefits us. I don't necessarily care in a lot of ways about. I wish them well in a lot of ways, but I don't care in a sense about how other countries do. That doesn't mean kind of like getting in their face or anything like that. And like you just flipped the switch in a sense. You've just gone from being the vassal state of one country to another country, and I don't necessarily see the benefit of that. And that's before you even get into some of the more kind of Duganist kind of stuff that's kind of going on there. It extends to as far as I know, it extends to the whole of Europe. Like, and it's like it's any kind of like system in terms of like how it kind of like improved that kind of Russian base, and how other countries can kind of benefit and like weaken that. I mean, there's stuff in that kind of philosophy about like like excluding Great Britain from any kind of trading because they could be a threat to the system, like that kind of stuff. Again, I'm not the most well read in it, but it is something I've been more interested in recently, especially in light of recent events. Because to be honest, like one thing I've trying to been figuring out, because like I followed a lot of people I respect, and some people have been saying like Dugan is this massive influence, huge influence, and some people have been saying he's been no influence at all, and I kind of just ignored him for a while. But then over the past 3 or 4 days, I'm starting to think he is a massive influence just based on how people have reacted to it. So yeah, it's a bit of a mind fuck in that way, but
one thing is
it's not fucking pretty at all. Like, it's not a nice thing.
One thing's for sure, Gail. After the death of his daughter, do you know what? I think this is going to galvanize the Russian people. I don't want to go down to conspiracy shit here now, like that. It might be an inside fucking
sorry, Jimmy, just interrupt you there. I'm not like saying the murder of a 30-year-old woman is a good thing. Just
no, that's not what I'm saying either. I'm just saying, like, but what's happening right now at the moment, the sense that I'm getting because of the death of his daughter, do you know what? That's going to galvanize even the moderates, even the people who are still haven't been decided. When they're looking at this now and they're thinking, "Oh shit, man, we got to fucking mobilize."
Yeah, I know. I mean, there's a bit of that I'd say going on too, because like I know I have a good friend who's lived in Russia for kind of like a fair bit, and he was saying that like and again, this is one of these things that a lot of people in the West don't get, that people absolutely love Putin in Russia, and they love him because of the fact that like you ask them, especially the older generations, it's kind of the younger Moscow kind of elite that kind of hate him a bit more, but a lot of Russians love him because for the simple fact that they kind of say that like when the Soviet Union collapsed, when you had Yeltsin, people were getting kind of like there was crime everywhere, people were going hungry, all this kind of stuff, and Putin fixed a lot of that. And from this guy, he was kind of saying like a similar thing has happened even over the past like year or so, because he was saying like a lot of people got pissed off at Putin because of the coronavirus restrictions. But then, like, the Russian-Ukraine thing came along, and apparently what happened is people are kind of saying like, oh shit, they hate us. So, Putin is right. And, the Dugan stuff might have a bit to do with that. When I mean the Dugan stuff, I mean the the bombing of the murder of his daughter, But yeah, I mean, it's just like I said before, it's something I've been trying to figure out properly for the past week or so. How big of an influence is he?
But come here, Gail. He wrote books about the Great Reset, and he seemed to be anti the Great Reset and the World Economic Forum. It's very fascinating. I have a lot more research to do about this, but it's just coming on my radar. So I'm just curious.
He has a book called Foundations of Geopolitics, and Foundations of Geopolitics goes into the stuff of expanding Russia into this Eurasian concept, Russia expanding all these different territories, and he talked about how to destabilize certain countries by. Again, I'm not the most well-read in it, but he's not a. Is
this going into the Mackinder World Island sort of type idea, where the Eurasian part of Europe is the key to the world? Is this where this is going?
Yeah, I mean, unless anyone here is more well-read in it, as far as I know, that is a big component of it. But the book, again, it's something I'd love to hear someone who's really good in this, but I've heard contrasting things on a lot of people who I highly respect in this. I've heard things he's connected to intelligence in the Russian Federation, and they read Foundations of Geopolitics all the time, and the stuff Russians funding anti-fracking and Green Party organizations in Germany so that they can become reliant on Russia. Again, I'm not saying this is true. This is just stuff I've kind of read on and heard. But I've also kind of read on stuff that he's absolutely nothing. He's nothing to be. He's just a joke. He's nothing to be taken seriously. And and the reason I'm talking about this is because if the guy is a joke and he's not taken seriously, I'll ignore him. Fair enough. If the guy is, if he's such a big influence in Russian thinking, I want to know everything about him, because that will predict how Russia is going to act in any decision they make. That's why I want to know if he's kind of big or not. No, but it has kind of expanding into Europe and stuff, and that's why it affects us.
You're kind of getting to the crux of it, though, there, Conor, because the whole idea of NATO was to sort of keep America in, keep Russia out, and keep Germany down, and to prevent the alliance between Germany and Russia, wasn't it? If I'm reading all this shit correctly, that's what was the role of NATO, was just to.
Yeah, you can see that with the relationships, right? Yeah, to be fair, you could see that like with the Americans getting jumpy about the kind of Nord Stream agreements between Germany and Russia, that they were kind of fearing that like those agreements would kind of like, especially between Merkel and Putin at the time, that those would kind of lead to a more kind of like, strong relationship. And in certain places in history, like Russia and Germany have had a very, very strong relationship.
Putin is a big German fan, isn't he? Like, Putin and Scholz are really good friends as far as I can gather.
Yeah, they could be. Yeah, I'm not very well read in this stuff. Like like I said, I'm interested in the Duginism stuff, but like I'm only interested in terms of like, is it the big thing that it's kind of made out to be? Because I was kind of thinking for a while it isn't, and then Dugin ends up on RTE News, and Putin is talking about awarding his daughter, awards in service of Russia, and then I'm thinking like, again, the usual thing, what people do rather than what they say. I'm thinking, no, this guy's a big guy, and people do need to know about him. Not even if you agree with him or not, but just because of the fact that like you want to predict how things are going to go. Well, you want to read the thinkers behind it, like, Well, I've heard his dad is. Yeah, I've heard his dad is connected. Was connected to Russian intelligence, and I've heard like his for a lot of the main officers of the Russian military, like the foundations of geopolitics from kind of like the late 90s onwards was like the textbook you go to. But again, I've heard people who say that like, no, that's bullshit. Like he's no influence. So I'm trying to figure out like, which one of those is true, No, Eurasianism is centuries old. Like it's a couple of centuries old, or a century old at the very least. It's just like,
and then you've got the creation, which is central to the whole Eurasian sort of like conglomeration, which is like the Greater Israel idea, and Greater Israel. It was planned that like Ukraine would be part of the Greater Israel, and that's why this. What's going? Sorry, yeah, go on. Yeah. No. Actually, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I just came across that in passing, like, but yeah. I don't know if it's realistic, like, but like if you think about it, right, and if you think about like the Zionist element that's part of Israel, which would have been they would have been the Khazar warriors, right? The Khazar. If you trace it back in history, you go back to the fucking Khazar warriors, and they were in a bind way back, like in the fucking days, and they were surrounded like by fucking elements like from Christians and some of the elements from east of them, there northeast of them, like in parts of Russia, and they made a pact, and they made an alliance with the Jewish people, and they converted to Judaism, right? And it's believed that these particular Zionists, they created their own language, which is called Yiddish and stuff like that, and it's nothing got to do with Judaism, really. It's their own sub language, and they've got their own subculture, and they're running the whole show there. They would have originally come from the Caucasus Mountains and in around Ukraine. It's just very, very interesting. I'm not saying that this is how it is, but I'm just saying it's a very, very interesting data point. That knowing what we know about. That's what I'm hinting at. I'm not saying. I'm not. Yeah. That's. Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. But I'm telling you, primarily where I'm getting this information from is from a dude called Brendan O'Connell, right? And he talks very, very eloquently about the Jews, and and he's got great time for the Jews. He's not anti-Jew or anything like that. But what he's saying is that the whole Jewish political class has been infiltrated by Russians. And that what they've been doing is they've been taking the technology out of the West and selling it off to Russia and China. Basically, this is his take on it. And you know what? Some of the evidence he puts forward is quite compelling. I have to say, God, man, you really have done a lot of work on this. I'm still not sure whether I fucking believe you, but I'll tell you what, you've put a lot of fucking thought and effort into this fucking shit. And so, look, I'm just saying this game, whatever was going on in Ukraine, it's much, we really don't understand it really fucking well, and that's why I would love to be able to say the Russians are the good guys. I would love to be able to say that the people in fucking Washington, D.C. are the good guys. I can't. I have to stand on the sidelines and say, I don't know who the fuck you cunts are.
Yeah, no,
I speak for 2 minutes. It's got nothing to do with what you guys are talking about. Are any of you guys on Twitter at the moment for the last couple of hours or so?
No, don't be on Twitter.
Okay, well, look, I'm after getting some information from a friend of mine. There's some scientific guy who's been monitoring quakes all around this realm that we're on. And these, as we know, these fuckwits are messing around with CERN. Okay? Just talking about there could be big mega fucking tsunami, a big fucking global quake. So I'm just letting you know, okay? In case shit goes really bad. I heard about these tsunamis and quakes coming years ago. And I was told 22, 23. I'm just letting you know, okay? So things are after kicking off crazy on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. But a friend of mine's just after messaging me there. You know, and as we all know, you know, they have Antarctica, etc., sorted for themselves, and they couldn't give a continental about us. So, okay, just letting you know. Things are really kicking off on Twitter. So I'm just.
So I wouldn't worry too much about what's going on Twitter, because you know what? It's
because
biggest...
you know, I am worried because this is what, you know, this is where we are at. You know, this is fucking like, you know, seriously.
I wouldn't worry too
I am worried because, you know, seriously.
I wouldn't worry too much.
I'm not worried about fucking who's in government and who's not in government. You know, things are going to get really fucking bad, people. So that's what I'm concerned about.
I've just gone on to Twitter.
Folks, I was just on Twitter, and House of Dragons is trending on Twitter, and there's a few other Rosa Tralee and a few other things. Nothing about earthquakes. I was just on it listening.
Okay, Pierre, I'm going to check with my source now, okay? Because he's kicking off. So I'm going to see what he's up about.
Don't worry.
Okay, because
I'm after being on, and there's absolutely
he's after
nothing
messaging me there out of the blue, and he's fucking all up in a tizzy, PR. So I do apologise if it's, but your man's going fucking apeshit. So I'm going to get back to my source and see what's going on here, because he messaged me. You know, so he's in an awful state.
Isha, I've been on Twitter. There's absolutely no mention of earthquakes or anything like that.
Just in relation to
like I said, I'm just going to get back onto my source now and see what
Ireland
he's
is
saying.
miles.
He couldn't even send me any messages. They're watching him. And, he was trying to send me loads of messages there, and 2 or 3 got through. You know, and this happens regularly when he tries to send me messages for some strange reason and all sorts of forums. So I'm just going to get back to him and see what the crack is, okay? And I do apologise, but as I said, he's kicking off, and none of my messages are cutting through. I only got a couple.
That sound, Colette. Yeah, I'd say he probably saw something and just probably, you know, got upset. There's nothing, and Saoirse has verified as well that at the moment there's nothing on Twitter. And folks, when we're talking on here, we try and let one person talk and not over talk on other people. Okay?
Yeah, sorry, that was my bad. Yeah. I just wanted to say that like Ireland is miles away from any kind of tectonic plate activity. So, I mean, I don't know what this guy is saying or not, but if that is going to happen, you know, like Ireland is going to be one of the more safer countries in the world to be in. So I just wanted to say that.
I think there was a 6.2 somewhere earlier on. I noticed it, like, you know, but they have a tendency to overhype these quakes, right? They go nuts, like, and I've been noticing this for the last few years. It doesn't matter whether it's earthquakes or whether it's solar flares. They overhype the goddamn things. But like specifically, like with solar flares, I was like, I'm an amateur astronomer, and I was back in the day. I was following the solar. As the comet Hale-Bopp was coming through our solar system, I was following the solar flares. We were getting X flares nearly every other day, like, and now they panic about these tiny flares that are irrelevant, like, you know, and they issue warnings, and you know, it's all fear based, like, you know. There was a 6.2 quake earlier on today, and the fear in the article, oh my God, a 6.2 quake, oh, you know. 6.2 quake is nothing. It's nothing. We get them all the going down time. We have done as far back as I can remember since I've been following it. Like, you know, so, you know, I know people get panicked, and don't give in to the fear.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, can I just jump in as well onto Dugan? You guys were just talking about Dugan there. I have friends in Russia, and when that incident happened with Daria, his daughter, they had actually, a few of them had actually private messaged me, and a few days later, I was discussing Dugan with them, and I was asking what was his relevance in Russia, and they basically said that most Russian men and women on the street don't even know who Dugan is. That it's basically he's more renowned on the Western stage than in his own country, and they said, which I think as well, is that I said, well, why was Daria, a hit? Like, why was she a hit? And basically, it's the fact that they don't want us reading his books and his thoughts, and this is what I kind of have gone down the track as well in thinking, is that they've actually shot themselves in the foot, because at the end of the day, more people are going to be going, oh, who's this Dugan guy? And they're going to be picking up and reading his books. So they've kind of done an own goal on themselves.
People reading Eurasianism, is that what you mean?
Yeah, I'm of the belief that the powers that be, the ones that are running the whole show, basically, they don't want us in the West reading his books. He doesn't seem to have any influence in his own country, because most people in just listen, most people in Russia don't know who the man is. They actually don't. A lot of the academics would have heard of him, but the ordinary man and woman on the street haven't an idea who he is. And his books. Yeah, no, well, I've basically said it. Just basically that it's the powers that be don't want us in the West reading and digesting his books. That's the whole point.
I wonder about that, though. I think it was PR. You were talking about how he like, here in the West, like, the story that's been going around is like Dugan was Putin's brain, and there's a lot of really astute people, like, they've been trying to find sort of some evidence of some connection between Dugan and Putin. And what they've been pointing out is that it's impossible to find any pictures of Dugin and Putin together. So now I don't know what to read. I don't know what to read into that. Like, but like there was a very because I follow a few interesting channels like on Telegram, and a post came out there a couple of days ago, which sort of like put it out there that like Daria Dugan, the little girl, that she was doing some investigation into. I don't know if everybody knows this particular news agency. They're called Bellingcat. Now, I'm not saying that this is real or not. Like, but if in fact, because like Bellingcat, I'm familiar with Bellingcat over the years, and it's clear in my mind that these guys are connected to MI5, MI6. You name your freaking agency, that's these guys, right? If she was doing an investigation into these guys, because there was something that Bellingcat, whatever they're up to in Ukraine, they're up to really fucking no good. Because there was not so long ago, but only about 2 months ago, there was an incident where there was supposed to be a Russian defector bringing Russian aircraft over to the Ukrainian side so that the West could get a chance to sort of like dissect some of the technology, like, but it didn't work out. So I'm just wondering, I'm keeping it in the back of my mind that maybe she was doing some investigative work and that maybe the hit was intended for her and not her father. Because as far as I can make out, he's nobody. It's a very unusual. It's a very unusual soft target, though. Like, how was that target picked? Very unusual. They could have taken out Roger Waters. He's on their kill list.
But you realise on that very same day there was another interception of a top host on the top TV channel in Russia. The not the Secret Service, but the special military in Russia actually intercepted team that were doing an assassination attempt on this presenter on the very evening that Daria was blown up. So there wasn't just one attempt. There was two, and there was one a few days before as well. but it hasn't. It hasn't really made the mainstream media over here. But that was also happening on the day as well. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't just Derry, Derry Dugan that got hit. There was another presenter as well that was a target as well, but they intercepted the team that were going to take that person out.
Oh, thankfully. I was very touched by what happened to Daria. I didn't know the girl, I really didn't, but I swear to God, I was finding it very hard to keep my composure, just reading the stories about it, and I was finding it very hard not to get angry about it. I couldn't figure out why, but it is what it is. Like, we have an attack on journalists, going on at the moment. People trying to tell the truth. It's not just Daria. It's like, we have English journalists under attack. You try to tell the truth at all these days, and you're under attack. I seen the other day that they unveiled their latest nuclear weapons, and I have to say they're really scary looking. They look like standard sort of like munitions that you would fire from a typical howitzer, but they're actually nuclear. My God, this is where we're going. Like, these would be what you might call small tactical nuclear missiles, like in the form of like your standard missile that you would just like what they're launching into Donetsk from Avdiivka at the moment, like from the Ukrainian side. I mean, they are scary. Are we going to see these fucking missiles just? You know what? It's starting to look like it's going to go fucking nuclear. I don't know why, because you got like Ukraine attacking a nuclear power station down in Zaporozhye, and do you know what? Why would you do that? Why would you attack a nuclear power station and you're going to lay waste to the country that you want to win back? It's just like, it's crazy, absolutely crazy what's going on there. Yeah, I see a way out. For a start, America has to get back control of its government, and the neocons have to be gotten rid of somehow. I don't know how the hell it's going to happen. The EU has to collapse and has to sort of like disband, because do you know what? They're clearly not fit to rule, because they just look like a bunch of clowns who have no ability to see what's going to happen from the decisions that they're making. Like, they just look like nutcases, man. So yeah, if there's a way out, if those two things happen, it might help. I don't know. Maybe they're the good guys. Maybe they're the fucking good guys. I really don't know anymore. I don't know. Wish I knew. I think it's a waiting.
Basically, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to wait. We are too small of numbers to effectively do anything in this country, because even if we tried to go down the physical route, the violent route, we'd be completely overthrown because we're too small. We're just going to have to sit back and wait and see what happens, because we're not going to wake. We've tried for 2.5 years to wake people up. It's never going to happen. Okay, the only way you're going to get any bit of fight back, bite back, or whatever you want to call it, from the Irish populace is if it affects them in the back pocket, and unfortunately, that's the only way. It's going to be the back pocket and housing. We have teenagers that are going to be looking for college in 3 weeks' time, and we're going to be in serious trouble because there's no houses for these children to go to college, and there's going to be uproar over it. And if there is an economic collapse, with the monetary situation, and people are feeling the pinch much higher than they are right now, that's when you're going to get fight back. But at the moment, for us, what we need to do is we need to be forming our little groups and doing things, not on Telegram, not on any wire service that can be intercepted, just meeting in person, getting to know people, see if they're true, if they can be trusted, forming your communities, growing, putting a bit of money, away, so that if things do go belly up, that you have a bit of money for barter, you have food, and you have fuel.
Do you know what, PR? That's really, really sound advice. And another thing we mustn't forget is that we have an inflection point coming out very shortly, which is the effects of the jabs and what they've done to people. Because I think, I've been following this for quite some time now. I don't say a whole lot about it, because there's not a lot of we have anecdotal evidence of what might be going on, but I think we're starting to see a pattern forming. I think we're starting to see a huge increase in the background deaths. The excess mortality rate does seem to be, it just seems to be going through the roof, and the curve up, the bell curve, doesn't seem to be diminishing at all. So I think over the next 1 to 5 years, I think we're going to see huge demographic changes, and I don't want to be a doom-tard about it, but I have to be realistic about it. Back about a year ago, we were all kind of oh, well, maybe, but I have to say, looking at some of the data I'm seeing now coming from the health insurers, and just looking at the the background excess deaths, not just from Ireland, because we're getting very, very little data from Ireland, but we had an interesting data point there from Ireland there about, was it last week, where they reported that only 3% of the total reported numbers of actual deaths from the COVID actually really died. So 97% of the deaths were obviously people who had extra comorbidities and stuff like that, which echoes what was going on in, say, in Italy. The numbers we got from Italy, the numbers we got from New York and various places around the world. But we are seeing this uptick in excess deaths, and the worrying thing as well too is the decrease in natality. We're starting to see a pattern here of a decrease in natality, which is seems to be down 20. Excess deaths are up 20%, natality is down 20%. Excess deaths are up 25% in some places like Taiwan. Natality is down 25% in Taiwan. I think we're starting to see a pattern forming here. I have to say it's very, very worrying, for we can talk about like the influx of refugees and stuff, but like, what is this going to do to our population? Like when this all fully plays out and the end game is finished, Over to you guys.
Well, actually, just on that point there, the CSO are going to release the birth figure data tomorrow for Q1 2022. So yeah, I'll be doing kind of a quick post or two on that. The only thing with the kind of fertility stuff is the decline in fertility year on year on a monthly basis. So like March 20, say May 2022 compared to May 2021, that decline in births, or the growth rate in that decline of births, does seem to be going down. So like I think for example, like in Sweden in March or April, they had a 10% increase down from April 2021, and then in May it went to a 6% decline from May 2021. So there is maybe a little bit of evidence kind of floating around a lot of European countries that the decline in fertility might be temporary, which is the most important one in a sense, because not to sound grim or not to sound kind of on the like overly dark or whatever, but countries can survive a reduction in a potential hypothetical reduction in life expectancy, but they can't survive, or they're going to struggle a lot more to survive like new people being born. So if that one's okay, then that's very, very fucking good. So, but yeah, like you're right. I mean, there's a lot of those numbers are going crazy, and like even in the Irish case, our excess mortality is up about 20%, which is quite a bit.
I just see somebody's screen up there. Is that meant for everybody to see or what? I don't know. See that screen there? Can everybody else see that screen with writing and stuff on it? I don't know if that's for everybody or what, or was that a mistake, or I'm just letting this know. Somebody's stuff is up there. Thank you. Sorry, was that for me? Are you Conor? Hi. Yeah, no, look, he was just kicking off because, do you remember, was it the Canaries last year? Do you remember the volcano and all that crap? And they were setting off stuff. It's just like the plates are really, the Pacific plates are shifting. So he's just in a bit of a panic. So this guy is just, he was trying to send me information, and he only could send me 2 or 3 things. Every time he tried to resend me stuff, it just stopped him on Messenger for some reason, because they're watching this guy all the time. And I do apologize if I came off weird or that I'm some sort of a nut and I upset anybody, because the Pacific plates are shifting. So this scientific guy is going apeshit, and your man, I don't know, but look, as I said, I do apologize, but look, we don't know what they're capable of with CERN. I'm just going to say that, okay? We don't know what they have planned. We don't know what they are capable with their technology, okay? God knows what they've planted in the Earth's realm or under the sea. That's all I'm saying. Families that are running this whole thing with this mega big computer that's gone rogue. That's why we're all in this situation. That's what's going on, right? Top 13 families that are running the worlds, BlackRock, Vanguard, all these. They're the people I'm talking about. The ones at the top, the ones that are running this realm that we're on. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, and I have been talking about this for I don't know how many years. And people think I'm nuts, but I don't care. But I'm telling you, this major stuff going on. So, okay, because I like to see the bigger picture. as well as what's going on today. But I do like to see what's going on ahead. I've always been like that.
Usually, you don't need to worry. We're not on any plates anyway. We'll not be experiencing any quakes or
Yeah,
anything like that.
we're miles away from the plates. So if something was to happen, it would be the last people to be covered.
There is actually a quake zone, but it's not really close to us. It actually goes from Greenland right the way down the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, way down, all the way down. It goes all the way down. Like there's I can't remember what there's a term for it, but there is a quake zone, and I think there's one that comes up through England heading towards Iceland, and sometimes we might get some little effects from it, but not very often. It's a very odd time. I think there was a few times where there might have been some quake effects in around the Dublin Wicklow area, but it's not very often. So we are very, very far away from major quake zones. So I would, I wouldn't panic about it.
Yeah, we'll be okay.
To next year, 2023. Okay, that's fine. Okay, good morning.
Maybe that's more people in Donegal that all the houses are falling down.
2 and a bit years is that being open to anything is like an important thing,
Yeah, the only thing I would I've got my eye on at the moment is that we worry much less about earthquakes. If you look at where we are on the European continent, if you look beneath the ocean, you'll find that both Ireland and Britain, all of Britain, is sitting on a shelf, and that shelf goes back to an ancient sea level change that happened dramatically. But the thing we should be concerned about much more is the level of volcanic activity. There's been an uptick in it in Iceland as well. They've been getting a lot of earthquakes, and they've got what are called well, they're just like mini volcanoes where they've got an area of a fault which is just bubbling up, and that's been doing that and they generally do it for quite a long time.